good day to you all and Merry Christmas. It's Steve Wyss
Hello.
here, and I'm joined by Daniele Fisichella in sunny Sardinia. Not Sardinia, Sicily, in
Sicily.
fact.
Well, the
Yeah, the
other
wrong,
line,
wrong
the other
island.
line, the other line.
Yeah, yeah. How are you doing, Daniele, down there?
All good. Hi, Steve. Yeah, very well. Been here a couple of days. So when we recorded our Euro shows, of course, to preview this match day, I was already here, which is live, of course, on our YouTube channel. And I'm gonna be here for the whole Christmas and up until New Year. That's the usual things I do. I take the family over for a trip to see my parents, and yeah. I really enjoyed it. Very good weather. You can go out. Still need a coat, but you don't feel cold. So that's what we
Ugh.
like.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could say it's the same here in sunny Yorkshire, but it's more like miserable, rainy. Not that cold, but
It's typical.
you
It's
know,
typical York.
it's typical weather of around this time of year. Hope everyone's doing well. What is everyone's thoughts on these halftime scores in the Premier League right now? The big probably surprise is Luton Town 1, Newcastle 0, which that one caught my eye. I have actually been watching a little bit of a stream of this game, and Luton well worth their lead in this game, in my personal opinion, Daniele. However, they have not kept a clean sheet yet this season. So the stats would point probably to over 2.5 goals, or at very least a 1-1 draw for some cover. You can actually back over 2.5 goals at -110, which I think that's a big price, because even if Newcastle equalise, they're not just going to settle for a point here at Kenilworth Road, and probably Luton will go for the win as well. So that would be the one for me at halftime that stands out. A red card at Nottingham Forest against Bournemouth, and red cards for me, I don't know about you, I don't like getting involved when there's been a red card, unless it's like a significant downgrade on someone. Spurs are 2-0 up against Everton, and Fulham 0, Burnley 0. It's not been a day for goals yet in England. There's not yet a both teams to score match in the
Nope.
Premier League or the Championship, actually. Daniele, even Ipswich Town letting down the punters earlier down. 4-0 win for Leeds. Just thought I'd put that one in there now.
Great win for Leeds. Great win.
Yeah, it was a great win. And yeah, are you a bit concerned about the lack of goals around England? Is it that time of year?
Well, I think there is a little bit of December fatigue, if you like. I mean, there's been the mid-round fixtures as well in Carabao Cup, so I think it's understandable, a bit of rotations. But in the early game, West Ham Manchester United, we saw the recent version of Manchester United, a bit remissive, a bit passive. They had a couple of chances with Garnacho, but then West Ham were on top. And credit to West Ham after the hammering they suffered at Anfield midweek to come out on top of that game, a goal from Bowen and Kudos. I think they managed to turn it around. They're a very, very strong side, especially at home. They're in the top 6 now, West Ham, with these results. So obviously pushing for a big finish maybe at the end of the year. Look, I think these Christmas fixtures in England are always tricky because you play 4-5 games in very short period of time, so it's around 15-20 points, which for some teams represent a big chunk that they're tally at the end of the season. So if they manage to get 13, 14, 15 points, that's pretty much half of the points they might get at the end of the season, or a third. So it's really, really, really important, can decide whether a team finishes in the top 5, top 7, top 10.
Well,
So
it's
yeah,
massive.
it's a lot to play,
This
for. Yeah.
this in the Easter period can be absolutely massive for fixture turnaround. Tony, welcome in, and he's absolutely right. Bologna with a good win, 1-0 against Atalanta. I got to say, that's a great win for Will White on the hot dog this week. That one surprises me. Probably not the win, but that they shut out Atalanta. They rarely get shut out in a game, Atalanta.
They had chances. Atalanta had a lot of chances, especially in the first half. A couple of chances with Lookman, with Ederson. Skorupski was good coming off his line. And Atalanta perhaps were worth the lead in the first 20-25 minutes. Then in the second half, Bologna came out, didn't really have a shot on target, but had another big chance with Fabian, who missed it after a very good assist from Zirkzee. And in the end, they found the goal from a corner. Ferguson, the Scottish, however, he becomes the highest scoring Scottish player in Serie A, surpassing Dennis Lowe, who used to play mid-50s, 60s, also for Torino. And it's a big win for Bologna. 6 consecutive win at home for them. They are 4th. And that puts a lot of pressure on Roma and Napoli, who are playing tonight, the late games, because of course Napoli are now 4 points behind the fourth spots, Bologna with 31, Napoli with 27, and Roma 25, so 6 points behind Bologna at the moment. Milan 33 points in third, Bologna 31 points in fourth, Fiorentina 30 points in fifth after yesterday win at Monza. And then, as you said, Napoli, Atalanta, Roma, Lazio 24th, Torino 24th as well, who they draw tonight, this afternoon against Udinese 1-1.
Yeah, we've got 3 more games still to kick off in Serie A, and this is, I mean, you're on the show now here. People are after some bets, Daniele, to fill their Christmas stockings with.
Yes.
And I mean, the first thing, into Lecce, one thing I will say, for those who haven't watched the preview show this week, if you do get a chance, it really is covered in depth because both yourself and Will White have picks. But I think probably the first thing I'm going to have to ask, for those who are looking for sort of a lock or a banker, Inter minus 400, that they should surely win the game, you would think, Daniele, or could Lecce be a bit of a dark horse?
Look, tonight is going to be a real test for Inter. And you say, why? I mean, they are leaders, they are flying, they got 41 points in the table, same amount of points as Napoli had last season. But this is the first time this season in the league they are without their main man, Lautaro Martinez, who picked up an injury in the Coppa Italia defeat against Bologna, and he's going to be missing at least the next 2 games, this one and the one at Genoa next weekend. And this is going to be massive for them because of all the Inter players, of all the irreplaceables. Lautaro Martinez is the most irreplaceable of all. He scored 17 goals this season. He scored 29 goals in the calendar year. And, the partnership with Thuram has been so important. So has been the partnership last season with Dzeko and Lukaku. Whoever plays alongside Lautaro Martinez plays well. He's the captain. He's the talisman. He's the player that really Inter players look up to. So we'll see how do they what do they do tonight. It's gonna be a big test. Juventus have won in the lunchtime game, so they are back at -1 from Inter. So Inter needs a reaction. They also are without Federico Di Marco, the left wing back, who's been so inspirational, so good. He's obviously a threat going up and down the left wing back. So there are a few injuries to deal with if you also consider they're without Dumfries, they're without De Vrij. So it is a little bit of a depleted squad up front. Thuram and Marco Arnautovic still looking for his first league goal this season. So this is going to be a big test for Inter against Lecce, who are a side that have got 20 points. They are comfortable in the table. They don't necessarily need the points, so they can play a little bit with more freedom. I'm expecting Inter to pile up the pressure from the word go, to have chances, to create chances. But if they don't score early, nervousness can creep in, and Lecce have got quick players who can hit them on the counter. So it is an interesting one. It'll tell us a lot, I think, about the state of Inter going forward.
We're still waiting on the lineups for that game. We'll come back when we've got them.
They already come. They come.
They are out. They're out.
Yeah.
So without Lautaro, then where would your money be for an anytime goal scorer in this game?
I will look for Thuram, of course. 7 goals so far this season in Serie A. So Marcus Thuram, of course, is going to become the focal point of the attack. He likes to drift wide. He likes to take defenders out of position, but he's also been proven that he's a
plus
he's
163 anytime
he's
scorer.
Good.
That's a big
But
prize.
You could also go for Çalhanoğlu. He's on penalties for Inter. Inter, as I said, is going to create chances. They're going to cross the ball in the box. They're going to be there knocking on the door. And obviously, Çalhanoğlu is the penalty taker. He scored the last 12 penalties he took for Inter, but also he's a player that can shoot from distance. He scored against Napoli with a long-range shot. Or you could go for Barella. So far, only 1 goal in Serie A for him. Last season, he scored 7. So his numbers are a little bit down compared to last season. But you can also look for those options, of course, if your price is a little bit higher. But yeah, I would say Thuram, Çalhanoğlu, probably my best bet at the moment.
Yeah, plus 265 with Bet Rivers. Hakan Çalhanoğlu. It's a bit of a tough one to pronounce, actually, that one, isn't it? But yeah, it's going to be an intriguing game, and all eyes on the San Siro in about 50 minutes' time. After that, of course, we've got a match between, that's actually the same time kickoff, I do believe, Verona against Cagliari. And
yes.
This is a match that I've got a lot of interest in this game, Daniele. I like the goals here, and I think both teams to score has got every chance. In terms of the actual money line, we've got Verona plus 143. Haven't won since round 2. They are the favourites. Ty at plus 220 and Cagliari at plus 205. Think there's any value anywhere on the money line for anyone?
Not particularly. I think there is a much difference between these two teams, really, in terms of quality. Cagliari newly promoted, but with a lot of experienced players in the ranks and with an experienced manager as Claudio Ranieri. Verona last season got saved in the playoff. At the end of the season, they beat Spezia, pretty much unchanged from last season. Verona is a team that ships an awful lot of goals. So does Cagliari when they travel. Cagliari conceded 29 goals so far this season. Verona 23, but Cagliari have got no wins away from home. I think the safest bet here will be going over 2 goals. Verona have scored 2 goals at home in the last 2 home games. They're playing with a front three for Runcio, Juric and Ngonj, supported by Suslov. They seem to be more attacking. And the Cagliari, they got a habit of scoring late goals. Is a team that never give up. They do the best work at home. But I think over 2 goals, over 2.25 goals is probably the one you should go for.
Cagliari, of course, managed by Claudio Ranieri,
Yep,
a former Premier League winner with Leicester City. How highly is he still regarded in Italy itself? Or is he someone that's perhaps got a better reputation outside of Italy?
No, he's got a very good reputation in Italy as well. He's regarded like the man for all the seasons, sort of a jack of all trades. He can take teams that are pretty much in a desperate situation and revitalize them. A couple of years ago, he took on Sampdoria. They were about to get relegated with 11, 12 games to go, and he managed to turn them around. Last season, he took Cagliari. They were lying in the middle of Serie B, and he got them promoted in an heroic way, heroic fashion through Serie A. And this season, after a difficult start, he has steadied the ship quite a lot. They are outside of the relegation zone at the moment, only 1 point above Empoli, and of course, 2 points above Verona. So should they win today, they will create a big gap between them and the bottom three. They will be there or thereabout fighting, of course. But yeah, I think Ranieri is doing a good job considering the players he's got.
There have been some early goals in the Premier League in the second half. Nottingham Forest 1, Bournemouth 1.
Wow.
That's good news for Nigel Seeley. He's on the overs in that game. Spurs have conceded against Everton, and Fulham losing at home to Burnley. Vincent Kompany could be on for a rare victory here for Burnley. Still no more goals in the Luton game. Yeah, and then the final fixture in Serie A tonight, Daniele, is the Napoli away against Roma. Again, you've put a lot of great thoughts into the preview show this week, suggesting certainly the first half might be quite tight. If you were going to offer a correct score bet prediction for this game at full time, what would you be looking at, do you think?
I will stay under the 2.5 goals here. We have to stress the importance of this game, considering, it was already very important, but after Bologna wins, this is a game that really none of these two teams can afford to lose. They are respectively 4 points behind Bologna in 4th place, Napoli, and 6 points behind Bologna. Roma, at the moment, they are in 8th place. Roma, who incidentally lost to Bologna last weekend 2-0. They really cannot afford to lose. None of these two teams come in a very good moment, I must say. Napoli knocked out of Coppa Italia after losing 4-0 against Frosinone midweek. Roma defeated by Bologna, also missing out on the automatic qualification to the Europa League. The good news for Mourinho is that Romelu Lukaku is back from suspension, but still without Dybala, who was the main creator. And on Napoli's side, really, the good news is that Osimhen has signed a contract extension until 2026, but that's about it. They look really a shadow of the team that last season impressed in Europe and in Italy. At some point, they were considered the best team in Europe for a long time. Now they look a hybrid. They are not a Spalletti side anymore. They haven't got that confidence and that ball possession and retention, but also they don't look a Mazzarri side at the same time. They are very open. They can defend in wide areas. The 4-3 formation maybe is not exactly what the manager, former Watford, the Inter, and Napoli, of course, likes to use. So, yeah, on paper, they are the same team that won the Scudetto, but they are really low on confidence. And that could produce the game of fears, the game of trying not to lose. So, yeah, I would really avoid an over 2.5 goals, probably at both to score no, maybe a 1-0 win each way my predictions for the show, I went Roma is an handicap 0 because I think there is value there on the home side. They only lost to Milan this season at the Olimpico, or a 0-0 draw at halftime as a hot dog, which pays around plus 180.
Yeah, this feels like that sort of game later on. Plenty of time to check that video out once this reaction show is finished. So do check that European preview show out. Big game in the Premier League is going to be kicking off in about an hour and 15 minutes. It's at Anfield, Liverpool against Arsenal. We'll know the lineups for this before we go off air, hopefully. And this is a tough one. I've got to be honest. I don't know whether it's a good thing or not. I actually agree with Dan Roebuck's prediction that the best bet for this game for value might actually be under 2.5 goals. And I say that because I was looking at Arsenal's defensive metrics today, and they are staggeringly good, actually. I don't really get why they are so good. I think the two centre-backs have been excellent this year, Saliba and Gabriel. And I think Zinchenko is a key man for them when he plays. I don't know. This could go absolutely either way, Daniel. If it ended like 4-3, we're not going to be shocked. But
no,
I just feel like, especially after Villa dropped points last night, neither team's going to want to lose this game. I feel like the tie maybe at plus 260 could be worth a go. Not often I would even consider the draw. Have you got any thoughts on this big game?
If you look at the numbers, they're pretty much identical. Goal scored, Arsenal 35, Liverpool 36. Goal conceded 15, both teams. And the big improvement in Arsenal this season has been the defensive display. They are more controlled. They control the games more. They added more strength in the defensive line, of course, with the addition of Rice. The two centre-backs have got more experience in themselves. And they seem to attack with less vigor, if you like, but also because they like to control games better. Last season, they conceded far too many goals, especially at home, and Arteta has changed something in that respect. Also, Ben White has been less involved in attacking plays, but we have seen Arsenal, when the oppositions don't have the countermeasures, for example, in the Champions League, the game against Lens, they can pile on and they can score one after the other. Obviously the quality is there, but considering Liverpool and playing at home and an Anfield, yes, I think it would be fool to think that this is going to be a high scoring game and maybe an over 3 goals. Yes, I would say probably under 3 goals, or it could be a game that is decided by the odd episodes. But I do agree with Dan in this case.
I think so. I really feel like it could be a tight one. And the more I looked into the actual numbers of Arsenal this year, a lot of us saying, no, they've not been playing that well. But I think they must have been playing well to restrict their opponents so well. But this feels like a big hurdle for them. They've always struggled at this ground. I know Arteta's had some bad experiences at this ground, but can they get over it or not? Let's see. I don't think it's a match to bet heavily on. I've got to be honest. I think it's one of those where you have your sort of pizza money bet maybe on the game, but I wouldn't fancy anything. I've not really heard anyone say go in heavy here on this particular selection. Welcome in to Gaucho here. How's it been going so far? Well, we'd say we're sort of talking about some games that are upcoming, Gaucho, and you're a bit unlucky there on Fulham at the moment. That's a shock lead for Burnley, still 1-0 up at Craven Cottage. So I hope that they turn that around for you. We're going to go back to Serie A because Daniele's on the show. We've got an interesting title battle going on at the moment. Now, before today, Inter Milan were 2-9 favourites to win Scudetto. Juventus at 2-1. It looks like a 2-horse race at this point in time. A really important win for Juventus earlier. The amount of times I see them drawing a game with 10 minutes to go and finding a win this season, it seems to be a lot. It's probably a sign of a good team, actually. Where is your preferential money in this title race?
Well, we have to see what the Inter does, and we talked about Inter and the difficulties they might find in this game because they play without Lautaro Martinez, which is very important. Of course, if they win, they go plus 4 points with 2 games to go before they played every single opponent in Serie A, as we call Girone di Andata, so the first round of fixture. Of course, with a plus 4 lead, they will be strong favorites. But with Juventus, has to be noted that, first of all, they got more points in the table compared to last season. So there's been an improvement. And whereas you might look at the players and obviously notice that there's been no change in the formation apart from the return of McKennie, who was a flop at Leeds, but has been a very good player so far this season for Juventus. Today he gave the assist.
Before we go anywhere, we've got to talk about Weston McKennie.
Yeah, let's talk about Weston McKennie.
Let's talk about Weston McKennie, because he was one of the worst players I've ever seen in a Leeds shirt. But every tweet I've seen this season has been, and often it's from a lot of these US tweet accounts, I've got to be honest. So I take them with a pinch of salt. But there's been so much positivity about McKennie this year. I can't believe it. Let's hear it from the horses. Why? It must be the system then at Juventus. It must suit him. What sort of role does he play?
Well, first of all, Allegri changed his role in the first few weeks. He played him as a right wing back, and that gave him perhaps more chances to go forward, to cross the ball, less responsibility in terms of ball possession, ball retention, ball circulation in the middle of the park. That perhaps is not his strongest point. He's more of a incursor, a player that likes to run into spaces, one touch, cross, deliver, etc. Sometimes having a shot. That helped him. That boosted his confidence. Now he's playing back into his original position in a midfield three alongside Rabiot, Locatelli, or one of Miretti or another midfielder. He looks like more confidence. He looks more. He looks like a new player. I mean, today he played well. He gives a lot of energy in the midfield of Juve. He's a midfield that everyone says in Italy hasn't got a lot of quality, but has got a lot of willpower, a lot of strength, a lot of guile, and McKennie fits well. He has matured. Probably the experience in Premier League must have taught him something. Today, as I said, a cross wasn't very marked by the Frosinone defense, but delivered well for the head of Vlahovic, who scored the 2-1. And by the way, we have to say credit to Allegri, because his initial selection, he left Vlahovic out of the starting 11 to hand a starter to the young Turkish Yildiz, 18 years old, who scored today in the first half. Then, as often happened to Juventus, they retracted a bit. They were a little bit passive. Frosinone, who is a team newly promoted that has got a habit of scoring, they only didn't score in 3 games so far this season. They scored against a home with bites in the second half. And in the end, the more experience of Juventus, but also that mental strength that has given them the opportunity to win so many games this way. And I think about the wins against Napoli, against Verona.
Can they win the title, do you think? I mean, they've got advantages. They're not in Europe. They are,
yes.
Like, for those who are after a value stake in this title race, that's the team that they would edge towards just on price. So,
there are two big question marks. Two big question marks. First of all, can they continue to play so badly? And you have to pass me the term. I mean, badly in the terms that they are not dominating games. They are winning games in many different ways, as I mentioned, by willpower, by mental strength. But I mean, that's a plus for a team, of course, to have that character. Can they continue to play this way and get over the line first? Or is it going to catch up with them? Because if you look at last week, when they drew against Genoa, as soon as they found a team that matched their intensity, they had no answers in the second half. So this is the first question. But obviously, you can also look at the flip side of the coin. So far, for example, the attackers, the forwards, like Vlahovic, Milik, they've been really inconsistent. If they start finding consistency, then Juventus got more weapons. Second question is, how much they're going to spend and invest in the January transfer market, given that they are very short at the moment because they got 2 players suspended, Pogba and Fagioli, for different reasons. So it's a short midfield. But if they can add an extra midfield of quality, the likes of Højbjerg, for example, or somebody else that they might looking for, then of course, without sacrificing the current squad, they could boost their opportunities to shorten the gap to Inter. And then, of course, as you mentioned, not playing in Europe comes March, April. Yeah, I mean, it is an advantage, of course, having only to play once a week, regardless of who you play. It is an advantage. Of course, Inter being knocked out of the Coppa Italia takes away some fixtures for them, but the tough fixtures are, of course, the Champions League one.
It's an intriguing league this year, Serie A, because the top four race certainly doesn't look very obvious either right now, because there's teams like Bologna, Fiorentina in the mix of this term. Lazio and Roma are 8th and 9th right now, which is really low for them. Napoli down in 6th at the moment. Who do you think, if you had to predict the top four right now, which teams would you put in there?
I mean, we all hope in Italy, I think the neutrals hope Bologna will be able to make it, because it will be a great story of a team that has been built with intelligence, with great criteria, with young players, very well scouted and extremely well managed by Thiago Motta, a team that hasn't been played in Europe for the last 21 years. It's going to be tough, but should they make it to the top four, that would be as big as Napoli winning the Scudetto, perhaps even bigger, a team outside of the top seven. Then, if you look at Milan, a team that yesterday drew against Salernitano or in the relegation zone and had a very poor 2023, you start doubting, are they good enough to make it? They are so inconsistent. It's a team that struggles a lot to manage games. As soon as they put the foot off the gas, they concede goals. They are not clinical. And they got also an awful lot of injuries. The injury record is very, very poor. Yesterday, they lost Tomori because of injury, so they are depleted in defense. Fiorentina, a surprise, last year finalists of the Conference League. Last two games, they won very strangely 1-0. Normally, they score a lot of goals, but they seem to have found a little bit of consistency. They're a team that the opposite of Juventus play well, but sometimes don't collect the points that they deserve. And then, of course, Napoli-Roma tonight game is big for them. I still think Napoli got something more than Roma in this race to Champions League, but they lost a lot of opportunities already. And the last one that maybe want to push for a Champions League qualification, Lazio, who I think last season overachieved, finished second. So far this season already lost 7 games, but a good win for them at Empoli yesterday. But I cannot see them really going very, very far in this race. At the moment, it's 9. So for me, it will be Inter, Juve. I would say Napoli, and I do hope Bologna.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting, and there might be some value to be had. We don't actually have anyone priced up for the top four right now. There's been another shot goal at Craven Cottage, Burnley 2-0 up against Fulham. Who on earth saw that one coming? And Bournemouth are 2-1 up at Forest. That's a winner for Nigel Seeley. The boss is back, Daniele. He's
never gone away. He's never gone away because he's the master
winner.
of overs. And people always criticize. You've lost it. I mean, you can't.
It's been a good day for the Premier League boys.
We are the students. He's the master. So I think we should we should take it. We should take his advice. And his advice is that don't bet before November. Don't be so sure about your bets. You have to look at the form. And I think he delivers after November, Christmas. That's
it's the time of year to cash in for sure. But yeah, good day for the Premier League boys at the moment. I think there was a disallowed goal for Newcastle. Luton still 1-0. I can't believe that will end 1-0. I just can't believe that will end 1-0, Daniele. I'd be on the overs blind, really, even without looking at the set. Even Luton might get a second goal in this game. So I'd be looking at sort of over 1.75 Asian goals. In fact, you can get on a line there now. I just cannot believe that the clean sheet will come in, or the Luton won't get a second goal. Moving on to the relegation battle in Serie A, because this is another quite a close race at the moment. 3 teams automatically going down, of course. Now, my pre-season bet on Salernitana is looking good at the moment. I must say they've had 1 win, and I think they're lucky not to be further adrift, to be honest. But there's been quite a few poor teams down there this year. Who could get sucked into trouble here, Dan? I mean, Frosinone were pre-season big favourites to go down, but they're doing really well. Are they going to regress in the second half of the year?
I don't think they are, because they got goal scorers. They do score goals, and they play in a way that I think eventually is going to I mean, it's paid off already, but it's gonna pay off a little bit more against teams that don't have such goal scorer prowess. Of course, the question for Frosinone might be next season because they got a lot of loans player and see what happens. But I think the transition from Serie B to Serie A for them has worked well. I'll give you two names of teams that have been in Serie A a while, but they might get sucked in. The first one is Sassuolo. Sassuolo hasn't kept a single clean sheet in Serie A alongside the Salernitana. Lost yesterday 2-1 to Genoa. They only won 4 games this season, 2 of them against Juventus and Inter, but they always let you down against the teams that you think they should be beaten. It is a team that is extremely leaky at the back. It's always been, and have a problem that yes, sometimes they cannot see games off. Their home form is ridiculously bad. They concede a lot of goals and they could get sucked in. The problem is a team that plays every year. Sassuolo plays for nothing, and they are saved around February. But yeah, they got no objective. It's a very difficult team to bet for or against. And the second one is the master of draws, Udinese. 11 draws so far this season.
That's a
Today they
staggering
managed.
number of draws. One
It's
win.
incredible. One win at San Siro against Milan, 1-0. And then 11 draws, 5 defeats. Today, they were winning against Torino with 3 minutes to go. And then Ilic scored with a cross that ended up in the back of the net. So it was 1-1. But Udinese, again, another is the team with the worst difference between goal score and expected goals. They create chances, can convert them. They haven't properly replaced Beto, went to Everton. Without Delofeu, they don't create much. And I think, again, it's a team that in 2023 have only won 4 games, twice against Milan and once against Cremonese and Sampdoria, who got relegated last season. So that gives you an idea. They don't really win games. I don't think you can save yourself with so many draws.
Yeah, that's interesting. That there could be 2 teams there not currently in the relegation zone who could potentially be a bit of value down at the bottom of the table to go down this year in Serie A. Daniele, this just before we move on to some Premier League stuff, Serie A overall as a league is. I asked Rui Barlow this on the reaction show last week how strong a state La Liga was in, especially as all their teams had won Champions League groups. And what sort of level do you think Serie A is at the moment? And could we see an Italian winner of one of the European competitions this year?
As it stands in the ranking to have 5 teams in the next year Champions League, Italy's top at the moment. Italy's top and Germany second. So as things stand, Italy will have 5 teams. But now, obviously, it's going to be very difficult because they need to defend that position of leadership. And that means at least one of the 7 teams need to get to a final. It's very, very difficult because the 3 Champions League teams have all finished second, bottom of the group. Inter got perhaps the easiest draw against Atletico Madrid, who incidentally are winning 1-0 now against Sevilla. That was the pick of Will. I think he picked Atletico to win and under 3.5 goals. It would land if he stay like this. So maybe the easiest draw is Inter, but still very tough. And then Napoli, Barcelona, and Lazio, Bayern Munich, Lazio for me have got no chances. But then when it comes to the Europa League, Conference League, it's going to be a long one because Milan and Roma need to play the preliminary rounds. It depends. It's very difficult to. I don't think neither Milan nor Roma have got the team to go until the end in both competition without sacrificing something in the league. I think Milan are suited to play in Europa League. It's a competition that might well give them a little bit of joy. That's the real level of the team. Roma, we know they're very competitive. Fiorentina, we'll see because I mean, if they are into the fight for finish top 4, you never know with the Conference League. But they reached the final last season, so it is at their reach. Of course, you look at the Conference League, Aston Villa, very very big favorites there. Europa League, you got Liverpool. Of course, that's gonna be tough for anybody who's gonna cross them. But I think to answer your question, the state of the Italian league, I don't think it has improved a lot in the last 3-4 years, but we are very lucky that despite losing a lot of big players in the summer, every year there are players who leave Italian league. We still have very good managers, and there is a very good school of coaching. And if you look at the managers of the top teams now in Italy, Inzaghi, Thiago Motta, also Stefano Pioli. These are all players of that golden era of the 90s, end of 80s, 90s, who've been coached themselves by big coaches. So there is a lot of knowledge that's been passed, but they also been very good at exploring new ways of playing football. So yes, I mean, in that regards, we are blessed. Without forgetting, of course, Vincenzo Italiano, Spalletti who went to the national team, De Zerbi who moves abroad. So there are Italian top coaches for sure.
I just think Italian football is a little bit underrated right now. I like Inter Milan as a big price in the Champions League, 20-1 with Bet Rivers. Not an easy draw, but it's not as hard as it could be either. I agree. I think Napoli and Lazio do have tough draws, but Milan in the Europa League, I think got every chance. They got Rennes, haven't they? They should be getting past. Certainly this version of Rennes. I mean, things can change at Rennes, but ultimately there's just a golfing class there.
They should.
Yeah, and then you look at, we've got Feyenoord Roma again, of course, which is cracking tie. Those two just can't avoid each other in Europe.
For the third year running, and Roma always got the better of Arne Slot team after the Conference League final and last season quarterfinal. So maybe the odds this time are stacked against Roma. We'll see.
Yeah, and then of course, I think Fiorentina are one of the favourites to win the Conference League, just simply because there's not that much of an abundance of quality in there. But back just to the Premier League, Daniele, because we have to touch on this before we close the show, because we're in this Manchester City debate again. When is the best time to bet on Manchester City, if you like Manchester City to win the league this year, of course? Now, first of all, who do you think will win the Premier League from this point onwards, Daniele? If you had a $10 free bet, now let's call it a $100 free bet. It's Christmas, isn't it? We'll give you a $100 Dan Roebuck freebie. Who would your money be on for the Premier League?
I'll go for Arsenal, because last season they were the closest to Real Madrid, and I think this season they have improved. Yes, they score less goals, but still has to be seen at the end of the season if they manage to equal their tallies, and they seem to me more balanced overall as a team. They got more depth. They need to recover a couple of players that are injured, but I think once they got everyone back, they are a very, very strong challenger. Of course, the debate is, are they a world striker short of the Premier League title? I don't think they are. I think they can spread the loads of the goals between Saka, Martinelli, Jesus, Odegaard, Havertz, etc. So I think they are well suited to compete and go until the end with Manchester City. Manchester City, at some point, they're gonna win 7-8 games in a row. Will that be enough? Do they have enough experience in the middle of the pitch, especially from players coming from the bench, the likes of Kovacic, Palinha? Have they actually replaced well Gundogan, Mahrez, and these kind of players? Recently, Rodri, I think yesterday in the World Cup final, got picked up an injury. He might miss 1 or 2 games. The last 5 times Manchester City lost, it was without Rodri. Let's see how big is the injury to Haaland as well. It seems that he's going to be back soon. But, from now on, Manchester City really needs to win 10 games in a row if they want to be back on top. So it is likely, but I don't see. I think Arsenal will challenge all the way. Yeah, if I have to be, I think the value for me is on Arsenal at the moment. And if I could, I would bet on Arsenal, of course.
Yeah, I think there's a lot at stake obviously in tonight's game. The result of that could be very, very important. But as I said earlier, Arsenal's metrics are very, very good. They do seem a really well-run club. I was reading an article recently about how they seem to have accelerated injury recovery with some methods that they're doing there. I feel like Arteta's just trying to get them right to the top again. And it's either going to happen or something goes completely bust again, where they blow it. And Arsenal have blown it in the last couple of years in the back end of the season, either trying to win the league or in top 4 as it was a couple of seasons ago. So, yeah, it's a mental hurdle more than anything for the Gunners for me. But Manchester City, The difference this year is that there's more teams in the mixer, but that might help them as well because teams dropping more points with each other. I've been against City all year, but someone now needs to take the bull by the horns and go on one of these runs themselves. In my personal opinion, Gaucho is absolutely right. There was an equaliser for Nottingham Forest. That seems to be the match to be. I said at half time, I don't like getting involved with games with red cards in the middle of it, but 2-2 there at the City Ground in Nuno Espirito Santo's first in charge. I've been watching the Atletico Madrid game, which is an interest. Sevilla actually applying a bit of pressure to them. I don't know whether they can get on the score sheet here or not, but they're certainly giving it a go. At this Atletico Madrid, they're not as reliable defensively as they used to be. Daniele, you wouldn't bank on them winning 10. If they win it, I feel like it's 2-1 almost. I feel like it would be a more likely win.
They are missing a few players. Today, I think they're missing Savic.
Yeah.
And another couple of good players. So, yeah, it's Sevilla really needs a win. They only won one game since Diego Alonso is in charge in 13 or 14, excluding the Copa del Rey games. But, he's a poor Sevilla side, aging Sevilla side. It's not been strengthened in the summer. So, yes, I mean, it is difficult for Sevilla. By the way, Morata and Rodrigo Riquelme were subbed off at halftime for Atletico Madrid. Marcos Llorente with a goal just after halftime, so 1-0 as it stands, which is the Will's pick, which will put him ahead of me before my two picks.
You kind of interesting eyes on that game. And so Daniele, what does, before you go, what does Christmas look like on Sicily? What's Christmas Day? What's your what is the actual sort of traditional eating sort of order
it's
in
very
Sicily?
Depends what you're used to, but it's very family oriented. We do celebrate Christmas Eve and Christmas Day normally with the same people twice, with the same family. We see each other twice. We go first to someone's house and the following day someone else's house, and so we share the loading in terms of cooking. And I mean, in the evening of the 24th, normally we eat fish as a tradition in Italy, to avoid eating meat on the 24th. So linked to must be some religious significance there. But I mean, I've eaten meat in the past, and it's absolutely fine. And the following day, of course, you can have a bit of pasta, baked pasta, etc. So always first, second course, cakes. I mean, it is a big day, which normally extends up until into the afternoon. But this time, tomorrow, unusually, we'll be talking about football, because obviously there are games up until this evening. So it's an unusual one for us. There is no Christmas break, and there are gonna be games as well, 29 and 30th of December. Not quite the football feast you got in England with the Boxing Day, but two good round of fixtures for us.
There's even a game on Christmas Eve in the Premier League, the first time since 1995. And I was actually at the game the last time there was a match on Christmas Eve.
Was it Leeds?
Yeah, 1995, Leeds against Manchester United. Leeds won it 3-1, and of course, who scored in that game? Tony Yeboah, the famous Tony Yeboah.
Wow, Tony Yeboah.
It was a great game actually. That was a good.
I'm not against the idea of a game at Christmas Eve, but I just think that it has to be. I mean, it's a festive day after all, so I mean, why not? But it has to be played at a reasonable time. Tomorrow games at is a 1 p.m. kickoff. I think Wolves Chelsea. Yeah, I think he's all right. I think he's not a bad time to play. But I am all for football being played during the festive period, free time, going to football. Yes, it's a great way to spend your time, your holidays, to watch and to be with friends. But yeah, as much as the timing is right and it's not like bang on at 6 p.m. I mean, it's a bit difficult.
I agree. I think they should. They've actually said there's not going to be a game on Christmas Eve next year, which I'm a little bit disappointed with, because I think if you choose the right teams that are not too far apart, you don't want the away fans traveling millions of miles.
No.
But it's on a sociable enough time. I mean, sports. I think there's matches in the US actually on Christmas Day in the NFL this year. It's different across different countries sporting, you know, but I quite like the idea of there's a match on tomorrow anyway in the Premier League. And that idea of Christmas Day over in Sicily sounds all right to me, Daniele. I'll have my turkey on here.
Yes.
No goose this year, but goose can stay in my back garden. I'm wishing you all the best. Have a great festive period.
Buon
You
Natale.
and your family over there.
Merry Christmas. Enjoy and keep following us, and we'll see each other very soon.
Yeah, and of course, I would like to wish all of the viewers and the listeners a very Merry Christmas. Keep following the shows. We'll be back for more. There is one more, I think, penciled in before the end of 2023. But good luck, whatever you're taking today, before Christmas, and during the festive period as well. Myself and Daniele Fisichella will see you around next time. Goodbye.
Ciao, ciao.